Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. We are moving into Module 5. So we've talked about differentiation. We've talked about alternative assessments. We've discussed the importance of using these assessments to make informed decisions on our instructional practices. But we haven't actually talked about the nitty-gritty of gathering and analyzing that data. So how do we actually use this data to inform our decisions? So that's what we're going to be exploring this week. We will be looking at our instructional resources. We have a few different ones this week. So looking at a relationship between formative assessment and summative assessment, we know that both of these are very important. Um, Now, this is specific to a mathematics classroom, but if you're not a math teacher, that's fine, but you can still look at some of the processes that are used and the application of both formative and summative assessment data. We've got a few videos. So this one is talking about using data to support teacher and student growth. So not only does this data inform us of student learning, but it also tells us about our effectiveness as an educator, right? So this talks about a method called GLOWs and GROWs. You may be already familiar with this, but if you'll take just a few minutes to watch this video, there are a few, guiding questions here below. Then we've got formative plus summative assessment equals rigor. It talks about the importance of this assessment data to support the rigor of our instruction. So please take a few minutes and look at those videos, read through our reading for this week, and you will be utilizing this. You can also pull from previous modules, of course, but you'll be using this to inform your assignment for this week. So this week we are actually gathering data. This could be for your specific students, it could be for your school, but we're gathering data and analyzing it. So we're looking at your local school assessment data. This could be milestone data. There are a variety of things that you could utilize for this. You need to identify common assessments, whether they're formal, summative, that lead to published data. So we do have a link down here that looks at the CCRPI reports, and that's a great place to gather some of that data. You can also talk with your administrator if you're wanting to use specific milestone data. They may also be able to help you in locating that data for your specific grade level and or subject area. So you're going to collect data on assessment outcomes for the previous 2 years. Now, it says that it should include all forms of assessment, traditional, technology-based, and so on. I understand very much that many of us are not going to have non-traditional assessment data from the past 2 years on our students. So if you need to use, for example, milestones testing, we know that that is technology based, and that is fine. An example might be RTI, iReady, the link here, College and Career Ready Performance Index. These are the CCRPI reports here. You are welcome to explore this. This is just the state data, but you can, whenever you first click into this link, it will give you the option to search for your specific school. So that's a great resource to use for this. So you're going to be collecting data outcomes for the previous 2 years. Arrange this data in a well-organized manner, sorry. So you need to figure out how you're going to organize this, a table, a graph, chart, because you will be creating a presentation for your community of practice group. All right, so let's look at that part because there's two parts to the assignment for this week. The community of practice part 1 is where you are posting your data to your group. So you're going to create and present your individual findings to your group. We need to have this done by Wednesday so that your group has an opportunity to respond, and you're going to be working together for part 2. So you need to have your individual part done by Wednesday. In part 2, you as a group are going to create a graphic comparison and representation of the data collected from all of your schools. All right. So this gives you the acronym COVERT: collect data, organize the data, visually graph the data. Then you're going to be examining and comparing the data to baseline and mastery standards. You're going to look for trends or patterns. You're going to be looking at test out interventions while continuing to collect data. So these two components, examine and compare the data, and then review the data looking for trends or patterns, is what's going to be in your part 2 of this assignment. So part 1, again, is just your individual data. You're going to present this with an audio narration, and it needs to be completed by day 3, which is a Wednesday of this week. So this needs to be about 3 minutes in length. It needs to present your findings either graphically or a table format. Just make sure that it's organized so that your group can make heads or tails of it. This gives you further examples, Georgia milestones, iReady, summative reading scores, and math scores from those would be perfectly fine for this assignment. All right, let's look at part 2 here, because this is when your group is going to work together and you're going to compile your data into one presentation. So this is going to be a graphic comparison. So this does need to be in a graph form. You're going to create a 7-step action plan based on your learning. So this goes back to analyzing our data and then using it to create an action plan. So there's a resource here, how to create an action plan. You do not need to sign up for a Creately account, but this shows you the 7 steps that need to be completed in your, or included in your action plan. So your action plan needs to look something like this. Again, you do not have to create it through Creately. You can use any, Canva, whatever you want to use, whatever applications. Just make sure it has these 7 steps. Define your goal, list the steps, assign responsibilities, set deadlines, identifying resources. So what resources are you going to need to carry out this action plan? Create a visual plan, and then how are you going to monitor the progress of this plan to make sure that it is effective? So each step is kind of outlined below. So you can read through each step to make sure that you are highlighting and explaining those in your presentation. So use headings for each of the 7 steps in your written proposal. This is not a formal research paper, but it is a written proposal. So in presentation format, you're going to create a chart for your presentation. So you need to have that 7-step action plan. You need to have your graphic comparison, and you need to have a written proposal explaining each step of your action plan. So, and support your decisions with citations to our module resources. All right, so the proposal should address large-scale solutions. Again, I know these are all individual schools, so I'm not looking for specific solutions to specific schools. I'm looking at large-scale solutions. Think statewide policy changes. We're not looking for specific schools or even specific districts. I don't think we have any groups that are all belong in one district, but think statewide policy change, large-scale solutions. on what could be done to improve student outcomes, describe a change regarding the use of differentiation. So how could differentiation be added to consequential assessments? And then add a discussion about the action plan. All right, so you're submitting two items, your narrated presentation describing the data comparison and the action plan, and then I need to actually see your action plan, including the 7 steps, including your references to research. So it should be, this will be a little longer, 7 to 10 minutes in length. Your entire group is going to work on this together, which is another reason it's very important that you get your individual part done by Wednesday. Um, and that is going to be part 2, and you'll be posting in VoiceThread. So in your COP group, you will be creating a VoiceThread. So whoever your group leader is for this week is going to be in charge of making sure that that is posted to your group page. All right, so we have those 2 parts. Then we have our reflective journal. And this is just talking about, reflecting on learning in the module. So how will you gather and analyze data in the future to inform your decisions and support student outcomes? So again, it needs to be APA 7th edition, needs to have at least 2 module resources. One thing to note, if you have 2 resources listed in your reference list, make sure that there are at least 1 matching in-text citation for each reference. All right. So this should be about 500 words in length, include those 2 module resources. If you have any questions about any of the assignments for this week, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be a little out of pocket on Tuesday and Saturday this week, but I will get back with you as soon as I can. And we'll be checking my email regularly. All right, y'all have a fantastic week.